The frozen outpost, the wind screamed. Like a living beast across Outpost K-17. It was a lonely human station buried deep in the ice plains of Zarns, one of the coldest planets in the sector. Snow blew sideways through the heavy gusts, slamming into metal walls that creaked with age. Nothing grew here. Nothing moved, and the sky was always gray. The place was meant for punishment, not diplomacy, Sergeant. Tyler Wynn didn't like diplomats. He liked them even less when they came from the Andrith Dominion. Those aliens were known for being cold, calculating, and emotionless, and the one sent to Outpost K-17 was the worst of all. Her name was Zara, and everyone called her the Ice Queen. Behind her back, Tyler first saw her when she stepped out of the shuttle. She didn't shiver, didn't blink at the freezing wind. Her cloak moved like it had a life of its own, and her skin shimmered like carved crystal. Her long silver hair was pulled back, and her face was unreadable. She looked around once, nodded at no one, and walked away without a word. She didn't speak unless spoken to. She never smiled, never showed anger, never asked for help, even when a small explosion injured a technician in the docking bay. She didn't flinch. She simply observed, made a note, and walked on like it meant nothing. Tyler thought she didn't care if the whole outpost burned to the ground. That opinion changed the day they were sent to investigate mining. Sector 9, a distress signal had been triggered, then cut off suddenly. The command center ordered a team, but due to limited staff, only 2 were available: Tyler and Xylura. Tyler groaned when he heard, but he followed orders. He grabbed his gear and joined her near the eastern gate as the blizzard howled behind them. The journey was silent. Sarah walked in front, her boots leaving smooth prints in the snow. Tyler followed, watching her move like she belonged to the storm. Not once did she ask if he was warm or tired or even ready. She didn't look back until they reached the collapsed mining station. The building was broken, metal torn, and doors wide open. Inside was dark, filled with steam and broken lights. Something had gone wrong here, something violent. Tyler drew his rifle, motioning for her to stay close, but she was already scanning the area with a glowing alien tool. He muttered, "Of course, she brought one of her toys." She didn't respond, but her eyes flicked toward him. For half a second, he caught a strange look in them, something like disapproval, or maybe disappointment. Then she turned away and walked deeper into the ruin. Tyler sighed and followed, feeling like a guard dog chasing an ice statue. They moved through narrow corridors, each step creaking on the metal floor. Flickering sparks lit the way for a moment before dying again. Suddenly the ground gave way beneath Tyler's boots. He dropped, crashing through the floor and hitting hard below. Pain exploded through his side as he gasped for air. He groaned, clutching his ribs, trying to sit up. "Figures," he hissed, "should have known. She wouldn't even throw me a rope." But then something heavy dropped beside him. It was her. Zira landed with grace, her cloak still flowing as she knelt beside him. "You are injured," she said softly, her voice cold but not uncaring. Her fingers moved quickly, removing his helmet and checking the damage. He stared at her, too stunned to speak. Her hands were gentle, her eyes focused. Then she tore a piece of her cloak and wrapped it tightly around his bleeding side. "Why'd you jump down?" he finally asked. "I calculated your injury would prevent you from escaping alone," she replied. "That's not what I meant," he Muttered she didn't answer. Instead, she pulled a small crystal device from her belt and pressed it to his wound. Warmth flooded through his skin, the pain slowly fading. He blinked as her pale face came into view again, and for just a moment the edge in her eyes softened. There was something behind that icy stare, something broken, something buried, and Tyler saw it clear as day. Sadness, not arrogance. Silence, not cruelty. And maybe, just maybe, a heart to hurt to open again. Before he could speak, she stood and turned away. I will find another exit, she said quickly, but Tyler didn't miss how her hand trembled just once, or how she looked back at him when she thought he couldn't see. For the first time he didn't see an alien, cold-hearted monster. He saw a person, the memory. Below the ice, the cold was thicker. Underground, the lower tunnels of Mining Sector 9 hadn't seen light in weeks, maybe months. Zilara moved like a ghost ahead of him, her scanner pulsing with dim violet light. Tyler limped behind her, still feeling the sting in his ribs, despite the healing device she used. Each step echoed against the walls, and every shadow looked like it wanted to move. He didn't understand her. 1 minute she was silent like stone. The next she wrapped her own cloak around him to stop his bleeding. Was it duty or something more? He had worked with aliens before, but none as unreadable as her, and now in the freezing dark with something lurking in the air, she was the only one he trusted. Suddenly she stopped, her hands shot up, signaling silent. Tyler froze, his fingers gripping his weapon tighter. Then he heard it, a low mechanical hum, followed by something wet scraping across metal. Something was still alive down here, and it wasn't friendly. Zara moved swiftly, pressing her back to the wall and motioning for Tyler to cover the other side. Her eyes weren't afraid, but alert, sharp. He realized she was trained for this, far more than just a political figure. She moved like a soldier, and that surprised him more than it should have. He took position, watching her lead without words. Moment later, the creature revealed itself, a mining drone, corrupted, sparking, crawling like a spider with broken legs. Its eyes glowed red, and sharp blades jutted out where tools once were. Zilara didn't hesitate. She moved forward, dodging the first strike and jamming her crystal scanner into its side. Electric pulses surged through the machine, and it shrieked like a dying animal. Tyler jumped in, firing a single shot that blew out the sensor node. Drone collapsed, twitching, then finally went still. Smoke curled into the air, mixing with frost. The silence returned, even heavier than before. Zara stood over it, breathing lightly. Her weapon hummed softly in her hand, glowing with strange energy. Tyler walked up beside her, keeping his eyes on the dead drone. That was fast, he muttered. I have experienced disabling threats, she replied calmly. Didn't know diplomats got that kind of training, he said, raising an eyebrow. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked at the drone and said, I was not always a diplomat. Tyler turned toward her, surprised by the honesty. Before he could ask more, she continued walking deeper into the tunnel. They found a control room, its walls cracked and screens shattered, but there was a terminal still glowing in the corner, flickering weakly. Zara knelt beside it and inserted a shard from her belt into the port. The screen cleared and ancient logs began to scroll across. Tyler leaned over her shoulder, trying to understand the alien text. She Translated a loud voice, quiet but steady. The workers reported sickness, malfunctioning equipment, and hallucination. Tyler frowned. That's not normal for a mine. No, she said, tapping a file. This mine was built over a burial site. A what? He asked, confused. Long ago, before humans came here, another race lived on this world. She explained. They buried something deep beneath the ice and the mine disturbed it. What did they bury? Tyler asked, Kay's voice a bit uneasy. Solara paused, her eyes locking with his. A weapon, she whispered, one that feeds on fear. As if summoned by those words, the lights flickered. A sharp chill moved through the room like a breath, and the shadows thickened. Tyler backed up, his hand on his weapon again. What is that? He said, looking around. It's awake, Zara replied, standing slowly, and it's watching us. A moment later, something slammed against the sealed door. Dust fell from the ceiling, and a low growl rumbled from the other side. Zara grabbed his arm and pulled him back. We need to leave, she said sharply. Now. They ran, boots slamming against metal, breath steaming in front of them. As they moved, Tyler shouted, why didn't you tell anyone about this? Because no one would believe me, she replied. No one listens when an Anderth speaks of ancient myths. Tyler looked at her. Really looked this time, and he saw it. Frustration, sadness, and something else, a desperate need to be heard, to be trusted. When they reached the surface, the storm had cleared. The sky was dark, but the stars were visible. They both stopped at the ridge, catching their breath. Tyler stared out at the frozen landscape and asked, why did you really come here? Zara turned toward him slowly, her silver eyes glowing under the moonlight. Because if that thing escapes the mind, she said, even your strongest armies won't stop it. He believed her for the first time. He believed her completely, and maybe he thought she wasn't cold-hearted after all the fire beneath the ice. The outpost didn't feel like home anymore. Not after what they saw in the mine. Even the lights seemed dimmer, and the air colder. Tyler sat on a metal bench outside the command center, staring at the snow-covered horizon. His thoughts were heavy, filled with questions he couldn't answer. Zalara stood nearby, her cloak blowing gently in the wind. She hadn't said much since their return, only that the mine should be sealed immediately, but the commander had laughed, dismissed her warnings as alien superstition. Even Tyler could see the pain flicker in her eyes when they ignored her. You saved me back there, Tyler finally said, breaking the silence. She turned slowly, her expression unreadable as always. I did what was necessary, she replied. No, he said, standing up. You jumped down after me, risked your life, and treated my wounds. That wasn't necessary. That was human. Her eyes narrowed slightly, but she didn't respond. A few steps away, a group of human officers were whispering and laughing. They glanced towards Zara and sneered. She's always watching, one muttered, like a snake waiting to strike. Does she even blink? Another chuckled. Or is that just a design flaw? Tyler clenched his fists but said nothing. Zara heard them. Of course she did, but she didn't move, didn't speak. Instead, she turned and walked away, back toward her private quarters near the edge of the base. Tyler followed, his boots crunching in the snow behind her. He didn't know why he followed, only that it felt wrong to leave her alone. Her quarters were simple, clean, and strangely warm. Crystals lined the walls, pulsing softly. With a faint blue glow, she sat near a small console, tapping quietly on an interface filled with strange symbols. Tyler stood in the doorway, unsure if he should speak. Then she said without turning, "You may enter if you wish." He stepped inside, looking around. Curiously, "I didn't know you had a heat source in here," he said. "These crystals store solar warmth from orbit." She replied, "It is a technique from my world." Tyler nodded, walking over to one of them and placing his hand on it. It was warm, not hot, and somehow calming. "You've been here 2 months," he said, "and I think today was the first time I actually saw you. I have always been visible," she replied. "That's not what I mean," he said, sitting across from her. "You hide yourself behind silence, behind that cloak, that name, Ice Queen, but today in the mind that wasn't who you really are." Zara looked at him now fully, and something flickered in her silver eyes. "I was not always silent," she said quietly. Tyler waited, sensing something important. "I once served in the Andor military, not as a diplomat but as a field medic," she continued. "My unit was sent to suppress a rebellion on a colony world. We were told it was a threat to peace." "What happened?" he asked gently. "We were wrong," she whispered. "There were no weapons, only frightened civilians." Her voice trembled now, just a little. "They bombed the village anyway, and I could do nothing, nothing but listen to the cries of children as they burned." Tyler said nothing, but his hand slowly lowered, his eyes soft. "I left the military that day and took a vow to never raise my hand in harm again," she said, "but that doesn't erase what I saw, or what I failed to stop for a moment." Silence filled the room again, but it wasn't cold this time. It was heavy, sad, and real. "You didn't fail," Tyler said finally. "You did what you could, and you still carry that with you. That's not weakness, that's strength." She looked away, but he noticed her hands weren't steady anymore. They shook just a little, like her memories were more painful than the storm outside. Then an alarm blared, red lights flashing in the corridor. Tyler jumped to his feet, Zellara already moving. "Sector 4, the voice called over the speakers. "Unauthorized breach at the mining blockade." "It woke up," she said grimly, "and now it's coming." Together they ran toward the command center. This time Tyler didn't just follow her, he ran beside her, shoulder to shoulder, and for the first time he saw her not as a cold alien shadow, but as a warrior with a fire hidden deep beneath the ice. Fire no one else had taken time to see. Asterisk, the thing that feeds on fear. The outpost shook as Sector 4's main wall exploded inward. The sound echoed across the snowfields like a distant roar. Tyler and Zara arrived at the command center just as red alerts flared. Across every screen, officers panicked, yelling orders, scrambling to seal doors and reroute power. None of them knew what was really coming. Zara stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Evacuate the lower levels. Reroute heat systems to form a barrier zone." No one moved. Commander Rensley stared at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. "Why would we listen to you?" he scoffed. "You don't even carry a sidearm." Tyler stepped between them, slamming his hand on the table. "She's right. Something came out of that mine, and it's not just a malfunctioning drone." "What is it?" one of the officers asked nervously. Zellara turned to the screen and brought up the mining logs again. "Not a what?" she said. "A who?" The room fell silent. "It was once a sentient being," she continued, "but it's Body was destroyed during the ancient wars, only its essence remained. Tyler swallowed hard, remembering the heavy pressure in the mind. It feeds on fear, pain, and anger, she said. The more you panic, the stronger it gets, and we just gave it a buffet, Tyler muttered as if to prove her point. The power cut out. The lights died, replaced by emergency red pulses. The temperature dropped instantly, windows frosting in seconds. A low, inhuman whisper floated through the air, like a shiver across the skin. The sound didn't come from speakers, it came from inside their minds. Everyone out, Rensley shouted, but no one moved. Some fell to the floor, clutching their heads, eyes wide with terror. Others screamed, hallucinating fire or creatures crawling across the walls. Tyler felt it too, a tightness in his chest, a rising panic clawing at his mind. Then he heard a different voice, as Alara's voice, calm and clear. "Breathe," she said softly, placing her hand on his shoulder. Her touch was cold, but her eyes were warm. "You must fight the fear, or it will devour you." Tyler nodded slowly, focusing on her face. The pressure eased just enough for him to move. She turned to the others, raising her voice. "Now do not give in to it. Close your thoughts. Remember what anchors you." Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the madness. One by one, a few officers stopped screaming. Some stood up shakily. Tyler realized then she wasn't just fighting the creature. She was holding the whole room together. They formed a line toward the armory. Moving fast, Tyler took point, guiding those still shaking with fear. Zara stayed at the rear, covering the exits and whispering calming words to each passing soul. When they reached the bunker door, they heard it again, a deep rumble behind them. Something was coming, slow and hungry. Tyler turned back, weapon ready, but Solara raised a hand. "No weapons," she said. "Fear triggers it, violence feeds it." "Then what do we do?" he asked. "Offered tea." Her expression didn't change, but her eyes held a strange light. "We walked toward it," she said. "Together, without fear." He stared at her, unsure if she was serious. "You're insane," he said quietly. "Perhaps," she replied, "but we have little choice." Then she reached for his hand gently. He hesitated only a second before taking it. Together they stepped away from the bunker and back into the hallway. The air was thick with whispers now, like 1,000 voices chanting behind the walls. Darkness pulled ahead of them, swallowing light and bending the metal. Tyler's knees wanted to buckle, but Zara's grip steadied him. She began to speak in her native tongue, soft chant, rhythmic and steady. The shadows shifted, revealing a shape. It had no body, no clear form, just smoke and light and hate. It moved like a wave, pressing toward them, feeding on the fear of those hiding nearby. Tyler's heart pounded, but he focused on her voice. The chanting grew louder, weaving a barrier between them and the thing. It paused just for a second. That's all they needed. Zalara reached into her cloak and pulled out a glowing crystal shard. She held it high, letting the light shine through the dark. "This is the last memory of the dead," she said. "Let them rest." The creature shrieked. The walls shook and the air pulsed, but it didn't attack. Instead, it recoiled, trembling. Then it vanished into the cracks between walls, gone for now, but not destroyed. Tyler gasped for breath, his hand still in hers. The silence returned, broken only by the soft hum of emergency lights. He turned to her, eyes wide. "You're not who I thought you were," he whispered. She looked at him, finally letting the mask drop. No one ever sees me, Tyler, she said, until it's almost too late. The silence after the storm the halls of Outpost K-17 had never been so quiet. No alarms, no shouting, not even the usual hum of power through the walls, just silence. The kind of silence that comes after something unspeakable has passed through, the kind of silence that listens. Tyler stood by the viewing window in the medbay, staring out at the frozen horizon. He had been in battles before, seen comrades fall, faced alien beasts and machines, but nothing had ever crawled into his mind the way that thing did, and yet he was still standing because of her. Behind him, Zara moved carefully, tending to the wounded. Her hands glowed softly as she placed her healing crystals over broken ribs, bruised skulls, trembling hands. The same humans who had once mocked her now stared at her with wide eyes, some in awe, some in guilt. None dared speak against her now. She hasn't stopped, Nurse whispered to Tyler. Since the attack ended, she's treated over a dozen people. Tyler nodded. She hadn't rested, hadn't eaten, not because she had to, but because she chose to, not out of duty, but out of something else. He walked over slowly, watching as she finished sealing a deep burn on a young technician's leg. You should take a break, he said gently. I will when they no longer need me, she replied, without looking up. Her voice was calm, but her fingers trembled slightly, not from fear but exhaustion. You held that thing back, he said. You faced it with nothing but a memory and a crystal. She stood now, turning to him with tired eyes. Memories are more powerful than fear, she said. They remind us who we are. Who are you, Zara? He asked quietly. Because you're not what I thought. She hesitated, then walked past him toward the window. I was a child when the war reached my planet, she began. My parents were healers, my brother a soldier, all of them lost in a single raid. Tyler didn't speak, only listened. I was rescued by a Terran medical ship. Humans, she continued. They took me in, taught me, protected me. For a time I thought I understood them. Her eyes narrowed as she watched the snow drift across the landscape. But years passed, and I returned to my own kind, she said. And I found they had changed, or maybe I had. They saw me as weak, too kind, too soft for war or politics, so I silenced myself, turned cold, and rose in rank. But I never stopped remembering the ones who helped me first. You mean they humans? Tyler asked, stepping beside her. She nodded slowly. Not all of you are kind, she said, but those who are. You carry something rare, hope, he offered. No, she whispered. Forgiveness. A long pause passed between them, filled only by the wind beyond the walls. Then a crackle broke through the intercom. Commander Rensley to all units, prepare for evacuation. Tyler frowned, turning toward the speaker. Evacuation, he muttered. They're abandoning the outpost. Standard protocol, Zalara said. Containment failure, psychological threat, withdrawal ordered, but we beat it, he said. You stopped it for now, she replied, but they fear it may return, and fear spreads like fire. Tyler clenched his jaw. You're not leaving, are you? He asked, already knowing the answer. No, she said. That thing didn't die, it retreated. And if no one watches these tunnels, it will rise again. Then I'll stay too, Tyler said without hesitation. Her eyes widened. That is not required. It is to me, he replied. You're not facing it alone again. The next morning, Most of the humans boarded the transport. Ships wounded were carried, data was packed, and guards were reassigned to other sectors. Tyler stood beside Zara at the base gates, watching the last shuttle rise into the gray sky. Only a skeleton crew remained now, and most of them followed Tyler's lead. They had seen something in her too, and in the bond the two of them shared. She turned to him slowly, the snow swirling around her like a living veil. You stayed, she said simply. You expected me to leave, he asked. Everyone leaves, she replied. Then let me be the first to prove you wrong, he said. Her lips twitched just the smallest hint of a smile, not cold, not forced, but something warm. It lit her face in a way no crystal ever could, and for the first time since arriving at K-17, Tyler didn't feel cold anymore, not because of heat, but because of her asterisk. What lies below's passed in uneasy quiet. The snowstorm thickened, but something darker hung in the air. The remaining crew tried to act normal, cleaning gear, repairing damaged walls, cooking bland rations, but no one could forget the shadow that had nearly consumed them. Not while the mine still pulsed beneath their feet like a buried heart. Tyler stood watch at the southern corridor, scanning the white nothing outside. Behind him, Zara studied the sealed mine schematics, her fingers tracing old roots and collapsed shafts. We missed something, she whispered. There is a chamber beneath the lowest level. It's completely undocumented. You think it's where that thing hides, he asked. No, she replied. I think it's where it was born. The storm cleared briefly the next morning, a narrow window of calm between waves of ice. They suited up without orders, without permission. Tyler carried a light pack and a pulse blade, but left his rifle behind. Solara carried her crystals and a small box of relics from her past. They reached the old tunnel entrance near Sector 9, its doors frozen shut and marked with warnings. Tyler pried the lock loose while Solara activated the override codes. Steam hissed as the door opened, releasing air that smelled of dust and something ancient. They stepped inside without a word. No one followed. No one dared. The light dimmed as they descended deeper than before. The walls grew older, untouched by repair drones, lined with symbols too old for human language. Zara walked slower here, her hands grazing the walls. This was not a human mind, she said softly. It was a prison. For what? Tyler asked, already afraid he knew. They reached a door made of black stone and alien bone. It pulsed faintly, as if breathing. Solara placed her hand against it, and the runes responded, glowing blue and gold. It remembers my people, she said, because it hated them most. The door slid open without sound, revealing a wide chamber filled with mist and darkness. In the center floated a shard of something broken, part crystal, part flesh. It twisted slowly in the air, whispering in voices that didn't match its shape. Tyler felt his vision blur, his breath catch. Then Zara stepped forward, her cloak rippling as the air thickened. It knows I'm here, she said, and it's afraid. The voices grew louder, speaking his name now. They offered him power, memory, even love, but he stepped closer to Zara instead, gripping her arm gently. Don't listen to it, he said. You're not alone anymore. She nodded once and raised the relic box. Inside were shards from her old life, her mother's necklace, a broken soldier badge, a leaf pressed between glass. Memories, not weapons. She placed the Box at the foot of the floating shard. This is who I am, she said clearly. Not your weapon, not your vessel. Air screamed and the mist thickened. The shard pulsed violently, glowing red. Now, cracks formed in the chamber walls. As energy surged, it lashed out. Tendril of black smoke slicing toward her heart. Tyler stepped between them. Without thinking, the blow struck him hard, throwing him back against the wall. Blood spilled across the floor as he gasped. Zara knelt beside him, her hands glowing, trying to close the wound. Why would you do that? She asked, voice shaking. Because I saw your heart, he whispered, and it's not cold, it's fire. Then he went still. Eyes fading, the shard pulsed again, feeding on her pain, but Zara didn't scream, didn't cry. She stood, eyes blazing, hands burning with crystal light. You feed on fear, she said, stepping forward, then starve. And she opened herself, not with rage, but memory. She showed it, her love, her pain, her guilt, her healing, all of it poured into the chamber like sunlight, flooding a tomb. No, the shard cracked, twisted, then shattered in silence. Its power folded in on itself and vanished. Like fog under heat, the chamber fell still. The whispers gone, Zara dropped to her knees beside Tyler, his pulse flickered weakly, his breath shallow. She placed her final healing crystal over his chest. Don't leave me, she whispered, not after I've finally been seen. The crystal dimmed, then pulsed, and slowly he breathed again, his eyes open, dazed but alive. She let out a breath, half laughter, half sob. He raised a hand, weak but steady. Told you I wasn't leaving, he whispered. And for the first time, she smiled with nothing held back, her true colors. Tyler sat by the fire, crystal wrapped in a thermal blanket, watching soft blue flames pulse against the walls, his ribs still arched, and the wound across his chest hadn't fully closed, but he was alive, and the thing in the mine was gone, truly gone. Zara stood at the entrance of the chamber, staring at the sky above the ruined tunnel. The ice had melted slightly around the old stones, revealing ancient carvings that whispered of a war long forgotten. She breathed deeply, not from exhaustion, but relief. The burden she carried for years had finally broken, and it did not break her. Tyler limped up beside her, leaning on a metal rod for support. You did it, he said softly. She shook her head. We did it, she corrected, without fear, without weapons, only truth. He smiled faintly. And you say humans are unpredictable. They stood there together, watching the night sky settle. For the first time since Outpost K-17 had opened, the stars shined without distortion. The storm was over, the darkness buried, and silence was no longer a threat. It was peace earned, not given. 2 days later, a council ship arrived. High Command had seen the logs, heard the recordings, reviewed the mental health scans. They didn't understand how Zara and Tyler had done it, but the evidence was undeniable, and this time they listened. Zalara stood before the council screen, her voice calm. You sent me here as a symbol of alliance, she said, but symbols are hollow and no one truly sees the one wearing them. There are forces in this galaxy that care nothing for flags or orders, only what lives in the hearts of those who stand against them. I stood because a human reminded me who I was, she continued, and I will not forget it. The council remained silent but not dismissive. After the call, Tyler leaned against the doorway, arms folded. Remind me to never get on your bad side, he joked. She tilted her head slightly. then nodded, noted she said, but her lips curved just enough to count as a smile. That smile had become more frequent now. The base began to rebuild. Not under command, but under shared purpose, humans and Anderth working side by side, cleaning rubble, restoring systems, planting seeds for something new. Zalara helped design the new security systems, not with weapons but with memory scanners and peacefield generators. Tyler led the engineering crews, never far from her side. At night they sat by the same crystal fire. She taught him parts of her language, and he told her stories from Earth. They laughed, sometimes awkwardly, sometimes freely. It wasn't romance, not yet, but it was trust, and trust was the root of everything real. One evening, as the wind softened against the walls, Tyler handed her something. It was a small pendant forged from the crystal they'd used in the chamber, a simple but clear a flame within. Frost for you, he said, so you don't forget what's in here. She accepted it with both hands, a rare gesture among her people. I used to believe emotion made us weak, she said. Then I met you and I realized silence is far heavier than pain. He looked at her not as a soldier or a diplomat, but as someone he trusted without question. I thought you were cold-hearted, he admitted, and I thought humans were reckless and loud, she replied. They both laughed then, genuinely, deeply, the kind of laugh that cleans the soul and breaks the last of the old walls. She reached for his hand, not out of protocol, but something unspoken, and he didn't let go, not then and not after. Months later, stories spread across outposts and ships about the outpost where fear had died, where an alien and a human stood together, not as enemies or strangers, but as equals. Some didn't believe it, some twisted it, but those who knew, those who had felt the echo of what lived beneath the ice, they understood the truth that she was never cold. She was fire wrapped in silence, and he had seen it first because he dared to look deeper and never looked away.